What's up, class? Miss Brown here. Today we're looking at chapter 12, all about deceptive communication. This is probably the second most popular chapter of the class, so hopefully you will really be intrigued to watch till the end. Okay, so just a question to kick us off. What do you think? Is it ever ethical to lie in interpersonal communication? Just answer that for yourself. What do you think? So consider some of these scenarios when you're answering the question. Like protecting someone's feelings, maintaining privacy, or avoiding conflict. And where should we draw the line between harmless deception and harmful manipulation? Okay, so just this question really gets us thinking about lying in interpersonal communication and how we justify it potentially, and is it ethical? All of these different questions. So today we're going to look at four different main points, and it shouldn't be too long, but we're going to start off with the nature of interpersonal deception. We're going to define it. Then we're going to look at the diversity of deceptive acts. We're going to look at communication behaviors and deception, and then we're going to tie everything up in a pretty bow with detecting lies in different contexts. So I'm going to show you some tips that really help you see, like, oh, is this person lying to me? Should I be skeptical of this person? And so on and so forth. So let's kick it off with our first main point, the nature of interpersonal deception. So some lies are considered high stake lies, okay? And some of these high stake lies would be like forging a signature, right? You can actually do like some jail time for things like these. Impersonating a licensed professional, engaging in insider trading, right? We've seen people go to jail for that. Misrepresenting income on tax returns, filing false insurance claims, committing perjury. All of these things are considered high stakes lies, okay? Now, some are considered low stake lies. Okay. So when we're looking at deception, it's important for us to define it in this way because it helps us wrap our head around it. So we've got the high stake lies. Now let's look at some of the low stakes, like saying you're happy to meet somebody whenever maybe you're not, saying you have plans to go out of an undesirable, saying you have plans to get out of an undesirable social commitment. I'm sure we've probably all maybe done that a time or two. When we were younger, and then falsely complimenting someone's appearance, right? So these are what's considered low stake lies versus the high stake lies we looked at, right? You're not going to get jail time for the low stake lies, but still maybe not good to do those either, right? Could really kind of hurt some friendships. All right, now let's look at middle stake lies, right? So we've got our black and white, right? Our high versus low. Now let's look at some middle stake lies. So lying to get out of a speeding ticket, right? I've heard people tell me those stories. Maybe you have your own stories, claiming you didn't witness a classmate cheating when maybe you did. Penalties for getting caught. And middle stakes are less severe than high stakes. However, they are more severe than the low stakes, right? So they're that middle ground. So could potentially get you in trouble, but maybe not. Still, definitely has more consequences though than the low stakes, but not as much as high stakes. Okay, so let's look at some elements of deception. So to qualify as deception, the following things must occur. Okay, three things. Number one, the sender must know the information is false, right? You, like, say you're going to lie. So you must know that it's false. Okay, if you do not know it's false, it's not considered a lie. Like if your intention is pure. So, second one, sender must be transmitting the information on purpose, right? You're intentionally sending that false information out to a receiver. And then the third one is the sender must be attempting to make the receiver believe the information, right? So you're trying to persuade them that your lie is truth. Okay. So that is how we can qualify deception, right? So those three things there. Okay, so hopefully you kind of have a better understanding of like what deception is and how to classify it in a definition format. However, let's move to our second main point, the diversity of deceptive acts, right? Deception is diverse, so let's talk about that. Deception is common in online communication. It's definitely common in regular communication. However, there's some things that you really can't lie about because you're in person. Okay, so let's look at this online context for communication with deception. So many are deceptive about their identities and their personal characteristics online. So hopefully you've heard of catfishing, but like that is real. That happens every day. So people are being really deceptive online about their identities. Also, people do gender switching. That's really common. Um, and in online dating profiles, women will usually tend to lie about their age, their weight, and appearance. And then men, they tend to lie about their education level, their income, their height, age, and even marital status, right? So, it's important for us to note that because life is so online right now, right? We're meeting people online, connecting, building those interpersonal relationships. So you have to be really skeptical when you first meet people online because they could really be deceiving you, right? So it's important for us to talk about that. Okay, so let's transition and look at why people deceive. Like, let's look at some reasons, right? It's not just because they're terrible people, but there might be some actual reasons. So, benefit the hearer, right? Maybe they don't want to make them feel bad, help them get to know someone, protect privacy, right? Maybe someone told you something in confidence and then they're like, well, you know? And you're like, oh, I don't know, because you're trying to protect someone else's privacy, right? It's not their business to know about what Johnny said to you earlier. And so, protecting privacy, avoiding conflict, right? You like just don't even want to have that conflict, making themselves look better, avoiding punishment, and then protect from distress. Okay, so there's some reasons on here that like, oh, okay, well, you can like punishment is punishment, right? But like maybe protecting someone's privacy, like that's a real thing. And you especially in professional business, like I can't share student information to other students and um, things like that. So like to protect your privacy, of course, I will have to, maybe say some things that are, different. So those things might be some reasons why people could lie. So those are important things to note there. But other ones like, you know, telling the truth is good, you guys. All right, so some lies falsify or exaggerate. So let's look at that. So some deception acts are acts of simulation. So falsification is communicating false information as though it were true. Okay. So communicating false information as though it were true is known as falsification. Exaggeration is overstating something that is true in principle. Okay. I feel like everybody kind of does exaggeration a little bit. I exaggerate a lot. At least that's what my husband says. Okay, so some lies omit or distort information. Okay, so some people would say lying by omission isn't lying. However, others would disagree, right? To each their own, agree to disagree, whatever you guys think. But some deceptive acts are of dissimulation. So, omission, right? So, lying by omission would be leaving out parts of a story to create a false impression, right? So, you're trying to flip the story and you're trying to lie by omission. So, you're leaving certain parts out so that way people don't have all the information, and so it creates a different picture in their head. However, once they get all that information, they might be a little upset, right? So again, to each their own. All right, and then equivocation. Equivocation is making ambiguous statements to give the false impression that one has said something that one has not said. Okay, so that would be equivocation. This is some crazy cool stuff. So I really love this chapter because I think it's important for us to talk about this because this is so needed. This is needed information whenever you're trying to build those relationships, understand people better, um, really connect with people. All right, now number 3, our third main point. Let's look at communication behaviors and deception. Okay, so we're going to look at some different things here. All right, so many look for the wrong cues and ignore the right cues when they believe they're being lied to. Okay, so when you think you're being lied to, you're probably looking for things that maybe you actually shouldn't. So we're going to look at that. Our truth bias causes us to believe most of what we hear, right? We just want to believe that people are telling the truth because one, it's easier, and two, you want to believe that people are telling the truth. So Levine's truth default theory suggests that having a truth bias is less cognitively demanding than being constantly on guard for deception. Okay, so um, that is the truth default theory is basically saying like it's a lot of cognitive load for us to be skeptical all the time and be reading the nonverbals of people and being constantly on guard with people. So we do have that truth bias where we're like, oh, of course they're telling us the truth. So important for us to maybe kind of be on guard cognitively a little bit more when we're building those new relationships and we don't know someone very well, right? Okay, so detecting deception is difficult, you guys. So some reliable cues to deception, and some of these are going to be pretty common that you've probably heard of. Information inconsistency, right? Does the information line up with what the person has said in past, right? So is their information consistent, right? Does it have solid ground? And then increased speech errors, right? If they are stumbling over their own words, they're probably more nervous or anxious, so they're probably trying to save themselves or lie or something. Increased vocal pitch is one. Increased blinking and pupil dilation. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see somebody's pupil, but increased blinking, like you could probably catch that. Increased use of false smiles, right? That's kind of something you really wouldn't think of. False, like they're smiling, oh, they're being good. No, they're probably being deceptive, potentially, like false smiles. You can kind of see when someone's smiling genuinely. And then decreased body movement. I thought that was really interesting. I thought it would be the opposite, right? I'm always really energetic and moving around. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope people don't see me in a different light just because I'm like energetic. But no, really decreased body movement is something to look for. Okay, so our last main point, detecting lies in different contexts. So when you suspect deception, remember these things. Okay, remember these tips. Familiarity affects deception success. Expressive people are better liars. Really crazy, didn't know that. Culture matters, but only sometimes. So just don't take that, every culture is different. Motivation to succeed at lying doesn't always help people lie. Suspicion, that's a hard one to say there today, may not improve your detection ability. Okay, so even though you're skeptical, it still might not help you like detect deception. And then non-interactive contexts are best for detecting deceptive behavior. Okay, so all of these things that we looked at today, right? False smiles, maybe people not moving as much, right? Stumbling over their words, or really just kind of reading the situation. Online is, I think, one of the biggest things we definitely need to look out for when we're building personal relationships now. However, I want to challenge you with something. So, as you move forward, I want you to pay attention to how deception shows up in your daily interactions, both intentional and unintentional. Challenge yourself to consider the ethical implications of your choices and how honesty or deception impacts your relationships. How can you use this awareness to build stronger and more authentic connections? Okay, so that's kind of our end note today. I really want you guys to think about this. And this is our last chapter. So I really want you guys to think about that as you leave the class this semester and move on to other classes. But I have enjoyed you guys so much. This has been such a fun semester, and please let me know if you have any questions over this chapter. Yeah,